Okay, are you getting me good back there? Okay, we're good. All right. Make sure I'm good up here. Okay, my name is Robert Wells. I run a website, DNAmatchup.com. I'm from Gastonia. And I've been doing DNA for, let me see, actually 9 years, yeah.
Could you get the microphone a bit closer, please?
Are you having a hard time hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, how's that?
It's better, but you still need to be closer to the mic.
Tilt it up a little.
Okay.
But
How's that? Is that better?
much better.
All right. I'll try to not move around too much. Okay, make sure my clicker's going. All right, Robert Wells. I got family ties in the Gaston, Lincoln, Cleveland, Catawba, Yadkin, and Surrey County, Cumberland, Mecklenburg, and York in South Carolina. Started my genealogy journey back in January 2010, and I had my first DNA test in May of that year. And that was a Y chromosome test from Ancestry.com. They used to do Y tests. So I got one of those and later transferred elsewhere. But okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through a brief what I've discovered and what I went looking for, what I was told, and what I discovered, and then I'll get in and I'll show you how I've done that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through probably a lot of the slides pretty quick. And then what I want to do is save the questions after we get toward the end. But I hate to ask you to raise your hand like you're in school, but my wife will have a microphone she will bring over to you. Because see, I'm recording this with the slides to put on my website later so that you can go back. So that way she'll bring the microphone to you, and that way your question will be heard on the video. All right. Well, just some things I'll cover is like why you should test and who you should test and the type of companies, and I'll tell you what I discovered. Okay, just some real quick questions for you. Who in here has had a DNA test? Okay, who wants to get a DNA test done? All right, I got them for sale over there. Okay, and who has no interest or thinks it's nonsense? Why is that?
Privacy.
Privacy? Okay. Well, I'm not going to go into that, but you don't have any privacy. If you ever had your blood drawn from a doctor, I can guarantee you DNA is probably somewhere. So that's gone. Privacy's over with. Yeah. All right. Just some things why you should test, because we all run into brick walls. So they've helped me break down a few. I still got some left, but there's a couple I probably wouldn't have been able to find out without the DNA. And you'll find out your true biological lines, because I can guarantee you have what's called a misattributed parental event back in your tree somewhere. And you probably look at your tree and go, hey, this doesn't make sense, or because there's always something out of wedlock or, something going on that no one knew about. I can guarantee that, even going back for centuries, because people were really no different back then than they are today. It's just a little more in the open. And it helps validate your research. And like I said here, identify a misattributed parental event. I'll show you a few of those back through my line. And DNA is the future of genealogy. Basically, if you're not really going to get on track with genealogy, probably about 10 years you're going to be left behind. And we also, too, we owe it to the future generations to get it right. Because, well, especially right now, we've got a lot of bad information out on the sites like Ancestry and the other sites of trees. There's just a lot of bad information. A lot of people copy trees that are already poor information, and they just grow like a virus. Okay, go through who you should test. First of all, you probably want to test yourself. If you've got parents, grandparents, aunts or uncles, you want to get those. And if those are not available, they're no longer with us, you can get siblings. And I'd say if you don't have siblings, you can get first cousins. The only thing, once you get outside of your family, like with siblings or grandparents or aunts or uncles, you will have other people introduced in there that's not biologically related to you, so you'll have to filter those out. And test the oldest relative you can find. I say get as close to the source as possible, because the DNA dilutes, over time. So, and sometimes you may miss out. All right, advantages of DNA and the genealogy. It's just another tool that we use. This is the latest tool to come along. Probably the best thing, in my opinion, the best thing in genealogy to come along, because it's not captive to bad documents and lies, and courthouses are burned and information is lost. I mean, you can really find out who your ancestors really were, and because a lot of our trees and we're told so many stories, and if you find out they're not true. People embellish things because they want to be related to someone famous or something like that. So you just this will help you find out your true line. And okay, moving ahead, some of the disadvantages. You got to remember, DNA is not a magic wand. I think a lot of people will get a test and they think they're going to open the site up and it goes, here you go. Well, that's not how it works. It's just another tool that you have to learn how to use. And also, too, one of the biggest things, it can reveal unwanted information, and I'll show you some examples of that. And one thing, too, I've run into some resistance. Some people that don't like the DNA because it can disprove your genealogical research. You can be researching for years and have made a wrong turn down a couple lines, and then you find out it's all no good. And I know that's tough, but like I said, owe it to the future generations to get it right. And there's a little saying, this popped in my head one day. I don't know if I heard it somewhere, but if you're afraid of skeletons, don't go in the DNA closet. So, and okay, here's just a list of 4 main companies. There's a lot of other sites out there which let you upload for free, but to me, these are only the 4 I really work with. There's beginning to be so many, it's just a lot of clutter as far as I'm concerned. And one reason I like to work with Ancestry more than anyone, as you can see here, this is just a graph of the numbers, of the number of people that are in the database. And the last I checked, and it's probably even higher now, but Ancestry claimed to have about 20 million. So just by the sheer numbers, you got a bigger target to hit. And where 23andMe is okay for genealogical research. I think they deal more in health. But Family Tree, it's still, the numbers are pretty low. They've got some good tools there, so a lot of people should probably upload their data there. Now, MyHeritage, a year ago, I'd have told you not to bother, but they have come up with some really good tools lately, and they've got some good ones coming down the pike pretty soon. And if they had the numbers that Ancestry had, I probably wouldn't even use Ancestry anymore with some of the triangulation tools that they have, which I'll touch on that a little bit. That's an advanced topic, but I'll touch on that later, show you examples of that. We won't go into that. I'm going to show you how to use what's called the autosomal DNA. You have different types of DNA tests. You have Y chromosome tests that's only good for males, from Y chromosomes passed down the male line. The autosomal test all 23 chromosomes, so that's good for any of us. And the mitochondrial DNA you can use, everyone has that, but you only get that from your mother. It's passed directly down the female line. Only with it, it's not that great for genealogical research because you can have an exact match, and you could go back 22 generations, which is around 550 years. So that's not, to me, that's not that helpful. It just maybe give you an area of the world where your mother's line came from. I don't think it's really going to help you too much to find a third cousin. Okay, it's just a simplistic view of your X and Y and your mitochondrial inheritance. Now, as you can, I'll go over the mitochondrial first. As you can see here, you'll see the brown, and that represents the mitochondrial DNA. And as you can see, it goes down the generations, and then it comes up. You'll see the 2 children at the bottom of the tree. They both, whether they are male or female, they get that from the mother. Now, what will happen here is the female child will pass that to her child, but the male child will not. So if, for instance, they had all male children, then that mitochondrial ends there. Now, if they had cousins that come from the same female line, it would go. But as far as this line, it ends. Well, like for example, we only have sons, so my wife's mitochondrial will end with my son's children. Sorry. All right. And as you see coming down the male line, you'll see the X and Y chromosome, and you notice only the male gets that. And if you also, if you look at the female child, you'll see the female child has two X chromosomes. They're exact copies, one from the father and then one from the mother. And it randomly picks one from the mother. And if you look at the one for the male child, it's black and yellow, and that's what's called a recombined. The two X chromosomes from the female recombine, and that's what the male gets. And as you can see, the female child, say for instance there was another female child there, it could actually get, like say, it'll get the white X chromosome from the father, and it could get the yellow X chromosome from the mother. So it gets two exact copies down to the female. All right, this is a simplistic view of your autosomal. It's all 23 chromosomes, the inheritance. As you can see, I've got the people broke up into 8 different blocks. And this is a simplistic view on how the DNA passes down the generations. So as you can see, the top line here, which would be at the great-grandparent level for the child at the bottom, is you see how the pieces of DNA come down to the child on the bottom, and he only has like 1/8 from each ancestor. Now, it's not exactly 1/8. That's just a simplistic view to show you how much DNA gets lost between the generations. So see what will happen, other pieces of the DNA from these ancestors down other lines will be passed to other people, and then some of the same DNA that this person would have passes to another generation also. I'll show you a little bit better representation in the next slide. Here I'm showing you where you get 50% from each parent. And then you roughly have around 25% from each grandparent, 12.5 from the great-grandparent, 6.25 from the second, and 3.12 from the third great-grandparent. Now these are the two children of these two third great-grandparents in here. I just represented 3 generations in the middle because there's really not enough room to put all the people. But what I'm showing you here, if you notice the blocks in the 2 children, how they get passed through the generations, and then the 2 different children, child 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom, those represent children from 2 different lines of these 2 people. Now you notice how the different colored blocks, how some of them, like for instance, child 1 on the left side, see the red block? So this person would match child number 1 on the other generation, but he wouldn't match child 2 and 3 because he didn't get, that's the only DNA that he got from that third great-grandparent. If you look at child number 2 on the left-hand side, got the yellow and the gray block. If you look at child 1, that person also matches child 1 because they both got the gray piece of DNA from those ancestors. Okay, and if you see like child 2 over on the right with that blue, it doesn't match anyone, but they are related because they do have the common third great-grandparents. So it is possible from this point, which would be a fourth cousins. It's possible not to share DNA with fourth cousin. Now, one thing that I have seen is that I did some research on this, and as far as I can tell, as far as second cousin goes, which means you share common great-grandparents, there hasn't been a documented case where a second cousin doesn't share some DNA with another second cousin. So if you've got a person saying they're a second cousin and they're sharing their DNA with you, then there's something off. Now you can, most third cousins I've seen do share, but I have seen cases where they don't. Now when you start getting up around fourth cousins, it gets diluted. And I have, my father, there were 12 children in my father's family, and I have 10 of them tested, count my father. The only reason the other 2 weren't tested because they were gone before DNA testing came out. So I have a real good example of that because with 10 DNA tests on my father's side, they all get matches that the others don't. And that's helped me prove a lot of family lines that way, because there's been a lot of people, if I had just tested me or my father, I wouldn't even know. All right, moving on to this next slide. This is and this is in the handout that you got tonight. This is just a representation of what's called a centimorgan. And really all that is a measurement used with DNA, showing how much DNA you share with another person. It's not completely exact. If you'll notice, well, like the immediate family or full sibling, and then your close family, grandparent, uncle, and half sibling, you'll see there's a little bit of gap between the numbers where they overlap. So in between there, they'll kind of round that off and go one way or the other. So, and these numbers do vary, and I can give you an example. Some of my uncles come up as close family, and then I have a couple that come up as first cousins, because they're right there on that borderline. And then numbers here, if you go down, and you want to keep this handy, and I'll show you where this information, if you've never seen it on Ancestry, I'll show you where that's located later on. Just a real quick thing about ethnicity estimates. So I don't take them real seriously, because Ancestry's gone through 3 different iterations of those ethnicity results in the last few years, and they come up different every time. Well, the first change they made, mine didn't change much, but the last one they did, they changed a little bit. And I'll show you why not to take them too seriously. Like I said, I've had my parents tested, and aunts and uncles on both sides. And I'll show you a comparison between my ethnicities and my parents. And I'd say they're probably accurate to the continent level. Like if you've got some European of this or that, you're European, or if you've got something from Africa or Asia. But now if your trace region is your small amounts, if you read the documentation in there, it'll tell you that's really a guess. So you may not really want, if you've got a trace region and a guess that, I wouldn't even claim it. So, all right, let me move on here. I'll show you a good example of why the ethnicity estimates are a little bit off. If you look at mine here, between me and my father and my mother, if you look down, I have 2% Sweden on my side, and where is it in my parents? It's not there. And let's see, Portugal, I don't think there's Portugal there either. Yeah. Now Norway, father has a little bit of Norway, which is probably may or may not be true. It's such a small amount, but yeah, Portugal and Sweden, I'm still trying to find them. Okay. That was Ancestry. I'll show you an example of MyHeritage, which is, and as you can see, like Norway and Sweden would have been the Scandinavian. Well, my Scandinavian number here is pretty high. And if I go over here and look at my mother's Scandinavian number, hers is 25.9%, and mine's 30.2, but my father doesn't have any, so where'd that come from? All right, I'll give you an example of what you should do if you haven't taken a test to save yourself some money. So this is what I've done. I would take an Ancestry DNA test first. They're usually $99. They vary. They have sales occasionally. I have them for $79 tonight, no shipping. And I'll show you how to take it too. But then what you can do, there's a way you can get your raw DNA from Ancestry, and you can upload it to Family Tree for $19. So you don't have to pay $59 or $69 there. And the last I checked, I forgot to check before I come to this, but presentation I done 2 weeks ago, I checked before I went in. MyHeritage is still allowing you to upload your DNA there for free. And actually, MyHeritage has become a pretty good site. And that's roughly a total about $118 plus shipping, versus if you go down and get the Ancestry test for these amount, $99 and then $69 for the other two, and you'll pay about $237. So it's best to get your DNA at, I'd say, all 4 companies, because there'll be people there that's not with the other companies. Because especially with MyHeritage, I've got some really good matches over there, not even in Ancestry. All right, real quick, I'll go over what I discovered. I'll just give you a backstory on my male line. My last name, as it is now legally, is Wells, like the bank. But, and my father, there were 12 siblings in his family, actually 13, but one died as a baby, so his 12 lived to adulthood. And I remember one time I asked my father when I was young, I was looking through the telephone book, remember when we had those? And I was looking at Wells and said, hey, Dad, are we related to these people? We got the same last name? He said, no. He said, my grandfather was actually, his last name was Thornburg. He said, the Wells come from a stepfather. I said, oh, okay. Well, as I got older, I started asking questions, and I got one uncle who spent a lot of time with my great-grandfather. He was telling me all these stories. They didn't know the man's first name. Nobody knew it. They just knew it was Thornburg, and he lived in York, South Carolina, and that's where my great-grandfather was born. And that he was an older man, like around 60, and his mother was about 23, maybe 22, somewhere around that age when he was born. And he had older brothers that caused a lot of trouble. He said the last time they seen him, the posse was chasing him out of York, and they burned the sheriff's barn down to distract him. And I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, well, I done a Y chromosome test and did find out I'm not a Wells, because there's a lot of Thornburgs in Gaston County. They actually come from a German line of, well, it's Tranberg was the last name, but he come out of Germany. It's probably a Danish name more than likely, but I matched them, and then they were really good. There was no doubt about that. So then I started looking closer. I had all the information, 1900 census. My great-grandfather was born in 1885, so if you've done genealogy more than a week, you know there's not an 1890 census. So the first census he showed up on was 1900. He was with the man, Lawson Wells. Death certificate said that was his father. Family Bible said that was his father. I had no information pointing to his true father. Well, back probably about 6 months after I was doing this, I said, well, I'm going to go down to York. If his brothers did all that, there's got to be criminal records. Well, there they were. The barn burning, the whole bit. What it come down to, they were running the illegal liquor still distillery. And there's just a lot of trouble. I'm not going to go into that because I could do a 3-hour presentation on them, but they, there was just a lot. I mean, everything from selling liquor out of license to presidential pardons. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So, all right, I'll move on past that. And I also proved that my second great-grandmother, which was my great-grandfather John's mother, she also had a child by her sister's husband. And I'm not going to go into that, but I did figure that one out. So, all right. I also proved that his brother fathered a child while he was running from the law. They'd actually shot someone in Gaston County, and they were on the lam for a while. And I'm a Williams. Williams line comes out of Union County, and if any of you have been doing genealogy, like I said, more than a week, you got Johnson, Smith, Jones, or Williams. Good time, isn't it? So that was a tough one. And then I also show how my uncle Donald and a couple of other my uncles and my aunt are actually related to my wife. She don't like this one. We have a common 7th great-grandfather. We share no DNA. She don't share no with my father, but she does share some with some of his brothers and sisters. And that was one way I was able to determine that family line also. About this time last year, I found out my Uncle Joe had a grandson he didn't know about. So and that actually turned out to be a good thing. So this is my great-grandfather, John Stanford Wells, born down in York County in 1885. He was the first one of the name that we have today. So, and this is his mother. Actually, her father was in question because she was born in August of 1862, and her father was killed in March of 1862 at the Battle of Gaines Mill in Virginia. So, but see, she had a lot of records that show she was born in 1864, 65, and 66. The only records show her being born that she would have fell in line with her father was the 1870 census. Everything after that was, so I didn't really know. So DNA actually, some of the, there's a lot, her last name's Camp, and there's a lot of camps in Cleveland County, which is where they originated. I've been able to determine that she was a Camp. There's no doubt about that. And she's the one that had a child by her sister's husband. And after I had a second cousin that had contacted us, and she had the same Thornburg story in her line, and she had just taken DNA tests and gotten it back. And I told her, I said, well, I've been working on it for years. I've pretty much got it figured out. I got all this documentation. And she said, well, we went and visited her down in Rock Hill, and then her DNA test come back, and I went through her matches looking. No Thornburgs at all. Nothing. The name McCullough was coming up everywhere. And that is a pretty prominent name down in York, Chester County back in those days in the 1880s. And actually there was her sister's husband's name was William McCullough, and William McCullough also was arrested with my second great grandfather a couple of times for selling illegal liquor in York. So, and this is one, and remember this too, this is one of the tricks that I use. One way I was able to figure that out too, I'd seen the name, so what I'd done is went down through the female lines, also names like Reed and Lowry. And I was looking through those, and she was matching those families too. So that told me. And then there was also a name of one of her childs that was actually the same name as like a grandfather down that line too. So, see, you know, my great-grandfather's sister was born in 1882, so I was able to find something out like that from 1882 as a secret all these years. And she had to know that. She just told the story so that no one would know, but she knew that. All right, real quick here. This is my great-grandfather's half-brother named William Thornburg. I had one thing with his line, a daughter that really wasn't sure was his, because outside all the trouble he got in York before 1888, after they basically ran him out of York County and Cleveland County, he shot a guy in Gaston County, and he had an identical twin brother, so they really didn't know which one done it. They found out later that he was the one that done it. He actually looks like a pretty clean-cut church-going boy, doesn't he? But he wasn't. He carried 3 pistols on him all the time, and yeah, he was a pretty rough dude. But they had a reward put out for him and his brother, and they in September of 1888. I couldn't find anything on them after that until around late 1894. Now I did have some family stories out of Missouri. A guy that is actually descended from him said that they did live in Missouri for a while before they went to Montana, after they had fled North Carolina. But he had a daughter that was, by all records, appeared to be conceived around December 1888, but it looked like he had left Gaston County around September. So I had got a DNA match on my father through a person, the lady here, Margaret Selina Thornburg, is one that was in question, and actually him and another person that are descended from her matches, my father and other Thornburg matches. So I was able, because that was a question in the tree, I thought, you know, maybe this girl maybe didn't belong to him, but she does.
Proving that he was here longer than...
Yeah, proving he was long enough to leave a child and then head out to Missouri and then Montana. And actually, just real quick, they got away with the murder. They actually were brought in, and then they decided not to extradite them, so they got away with it. Longest time William spent in jail was 60 days for adultery, and out in Montana. It's the longest he ever spent in jail. Okay, real quick, I have James Williams out of Union County, and then Millie Newell, which was Sarah Newell, actually from Mecklenburg County, right over the Union County line. Had a real difficult time with them. There's about 5 or 6 James Williams around the time he was born over in Union County. It was hard to tell which was which. I got actual 4th cousin match. It was really good. And this is another trick you can do too. Sometimes you got to work on other people's trees to find out the truth. You know, because this lady knew who her grandfather was, and he was in Cramerton. And so my Williams line came over to Gaston County around 1906, and some of my great-grandfather's cousins also. He's my second great-grandfather here. My great-grandfather Williams, some of his cousins all moved over there, and I traced this lady's tree back. She gave me the names, and it was pretty easy after that. I was able to trace them back to this man James Williams' brother. His name was Bryant, and that told me that I had that correct. And then some of the other census records, it lined up that I was able, because I wasn't sure Bryant was even his brother. After I was able to prove that Bryant was his brother, then it put everything into place. I was lucky too. I did find some Confederate records where his father was killed, and there was letters sent back and forth requesting effects, and his mother's name was actually in the letter, and so was his father. And his grandfather too, because it appears that his grandfather actually came there for his mother because it looked like she was illiterate because it had a mark and it had her name beside it. So he was there on her behalf too. So that was another, because see, you got to use DNA with paper records too. They go together. So it's just really a way to back it up. And when you got questions, sometimes it'll help you get over those things, those walls. Okay, this is just like I said, my Uncle Donald matches my wife. I had a great, down my grandmother's side, my dad's side, my grandmother there, down her line is Yunts, and they come out of Catawba County. And my wife's grandmother, so my great-grandmother was a Yunt, my wife's grandmother was a Yunt out of Catawba County. I really didn't even know this till after we got married, but we don't share DNA, so it's going back like the 8th cousin level. But she does share some DNA with my Uncle Donald. Now, this was before I'd had some of the other aunts and uncles tested. And this here is, this is from a site called GedMatch where you can upload your raw DNA. And it will show you actually where on the chromosome that you match a person. And it will line that up for you. It's called, and this here, how we see this is called triangulation, because they got more than 3 people or more. And see how the DNA values line up? That lets you know you're related to one another. So this is 2 of my uncles, and these guys are twins. They're not identical twins, but, and then there's my Uncle Donald and my Aunt Virginia. And then my wife. Now my wife is the person, she's the reference person here. Her block don't actually show up. This is showing where these people match her. So this, see what is that, chromosome 17? That's the part on chromosome 17 where my wife matches 3 of my uncles and 1 of my aunts on my father's side. But now, and see, this is another example of the randomness of DNA, because none of this here, she doesn't match my father. And of course she doesn't match me. So I guess the universe was looking out for us, right? All right, just some, and I'm going to move over to Ancestry here in a couple of minutes, but I'll just give you I'm going to do a quick rundown of what I'm going to do. But when you're working with your DNA, your matches on Ancestry, one thing I tell people, you got a little notes field in there, make notes. Notes, more notes. I think that field will hold 5,000 or 10,000 characters, pretty big. Fill it up. I mean, because you may not look at something for 6 months, and you may forget just about everything you worked with, but if you got it wrote down there, you can go right back to it. And know your tree. Know your tree really well, because if you know your tree and know your family lines, once you've worked with the DNA for a while, you'll have people that you know. You might not know exactly where they come from, but you can tell by your matches they come from a certain line. And I'll give you one example. On my mother's side, she got a line out of Yadkin in Surrey County, and they were Quakers, so there was a lot of intermarrying there. I can tell a lot of cases where people are coming from that line. So I'll say this is from the Yadkin County families or something like that. So I know where it gives you a range. That way, when you go back and you get shared matches with that same person, you already have that note, and they'll give you a clue. One thing you want to do, a good example with me, I'd been working, before I had the autosomal test, I'd been working on Ancestry for a couple of years. I already had verified some people that were related. And when I had my DNA test, they'd already had their DNA test too. So I go down and look at the matches. Oh, I know who that is. We got a verified relationship. Go to the shared matches, and I don't care if you got 200 shared matches. Every last one of them. Like, I'll give you an example. The lady's name was Gail Miner. I went through, I had about 138 shared matches. I went through every one of them and said she's a shared match with Gail Miner. So I knew that the only common ancestor I had with Gail Miner was Plato Durham Hopper out of York County. He had 23 children by 3 women, so we got a lot of them out there. Fortunately, was only one line. His first child was my great-grandmother, and his mother died a year and a half later. All the other ones come from 2 other women. So, yeah, a bunch of them. So I went through and made notes on all that, and you don't believe how much that's helped me. I'll get a match. I said I have no tree or nothing, but I'll look and I say, oh, they're a shared match with this lady, so I know it's going within that line of the Hoppers, which, you know, could be any of the other names over there like Martin or Surratt or any of those. Okay, one thing you want to do too, you know how you have hints in your trees? You also have hints in your DNA matches. And you have a button there. You can click on that. You want to go down, look at those, but look at the people's trees and make sure they got at least some decent research and it looks like they really are related to that person. But you want to make notes on those too. And once you do verify that, go to the shared matches and make notes on every one of them, because that will come back to benefit you later. All right, I've already discussed shared matches. You can have sorting too. You can sort by the date that the match come in, or you can sort by the relationship too. All right, we'll skip over this because this is pretty much what I'd already said. Okay, I'll go over this some. You know, one thing that you got known relatives, the people you already collaborated with, you really want to look toward that. Toward those people and make a lot of notes on them and their shared matches. And there is a way, I guess I come up with, I've never seen it, but I mean, if you've done DNA, you have sources for your records. When we get it, I'm going to get into Ancestry later. I'll show you how I actually make a source for my DNA match. Like how you have a source like a 1900 census, you know, it says it's from the archives or whatever. Actually, I come with a way to make a source for your DNA match, and it's actually very useful too. Okay. I got a thing here I call a reference match, and the lady Gail Minor is the one that that's what I call her, because I knew she's just an example of one. I know the relationship's valid, and I use her as a key to see how she matches other people, which will point me in that family. Then I've got it for other families too, the Thornburgs and some of the rest of them. When I have a match, it's verified. I make a lot of notes on their shared matches, because that actually cascades into other ones, new matches coming in. Okay. I do a thing called create family groups, and I already gave you an example of that, like Missouri County families. Those names like Russell, Wooten, Shore, and Goff. And a lot of times I'll see people and they match all four of those families. So I know they're from Yadkin County. I can't narrow them down yet, but I know they're from that line. So I'll just kind of create a group and I'll put that in the notes. Also, one good thing to do too is I'll give you an example when I'm talking about looking for matches of spouses. The Thornburg line, the common ancestor we have over there is only a second great-grandfather. He actually had a family from another woman, had about 12 kids. And then he had one child from my second great-grandmother, which was really a girlfriend. So all the people over there say they're a third cousin to me. They're really a half third cousin, because we don't share common great-grandparents. We share a common great-grandfather. So, and one way I was able to determine that is my second great-grandfather, George Thornburg's actual real wife's last name was Summey. So what I've done, because see, her sons, the ones I was showing you, like William Thornburg, was around the same age as my second great-grandmother. So I thought, and his twin brother lived in the house, and they also had another older brother. Kind of thought it was probably one of the brothers. Made more sense than a 60-year-old man, right? But so what I've done, I looked for the match to see if our DNA matched his actual wife, Mary Summey. So no Summeys there. So that told me it was the old man and not the boys, because if it had been the boys, we'd have a common set of great-grandparents, not just a great-grandfather with the other line. So, I was able to do that because, okay, Joseph Thornburg married Camp, his girlfriend, child he had from her. He had a wife and 12 children from her. We matched people from those 12 children. So the only line is between Joseph Thornburg and my second great-grandmother, Mary Camp, down to us. So we only have a common second great-grandfather. Does that make sense? And that actually can be helpful. I mean, it dilutes the line, but you've only got that one common ancestor. Or this is another example of your GedMatch with your what's called triangulation. And this is really a good example, because if you see the lady here, Gail Minor, Brenda Bahila, you heard me mention her name before. Okay, that's a daughter and a mother. Now the other two people that got at the top, Terrell Jonas is from the Yunt line, and the two people at the bottom, the Katie Mays and Ann Schmidt, they're all Yunt matches. Okay, the Brenda Bahila and Gail Minor, I know match on another line, the Hopper line, but they're also appearing over here. Now they were half-second cousins, but their numbers were a little too high. I mean, on paper, I knew they were half-second cousins, no other way. So it always wondered over, and see over in Ancestry, I don't get this information. All I get is their match you at 200 and something Centimorgans across 5 DNA segments, just for example. So I don't know where they're matching on the chromosomes. So see, I've got other segments with this person, because I know who this person here at the top is. This is Terrell Jonas. He's goes to the Yunt line on my dad's side, but he has no connection to, that comes out of Catawba County. He has no connection whatsoever to the York County families. I've researched his tree and over the Brenda Bahila, and I've been helping her research her tree for 9 years. I know it well. And actually, she cannot find out where this Yunt connection is. She's still not sure, and we haven't figured this one out yet. But we know it's there because of, I know who the other people are and where they come from. And if you see how the chromosomes line up here, I mean, that's how you know that you match someone, because they line up. Now, you'll see there's differences, like the guy on the top shares more DNA with my father than the others, but you see how the others overlap. So it's the overlap is what you want to look for. And you also want to look up at those numbers too. You'll see the numbers up at the top, like the, well, you see small segment out there, you ignore that, that's pretty low. That may just be by chance. But you'll see other numbers like the 57 CM, which is Centimorgans, and 29. Those are pretty good numbers to be matching. You look at numbers like the 3.62 Centimorgans. Well, a lot of us are from the same part of the world, so you'll get what's called identical by chance. So you can have, if you're looking at smaller numbers like that, you can have false matches just because of the actual base pairs lined up by chance. It's just random chance that it would line up. But when you get something that low, but see, he's got it that low, but he's got that huge block there of, well, about 57 Centimorgans. So that's definitely a match. All right, this is my contact information, and let me see how we are on time. I don't want to keep you people too long, but I actually got, how are we on time? There's just a couple little things I wanted to show from web browser. I don't want to bore people to death, because I can talk about this for 3 hours if you let me. Because, yeah. Oh, I won't do that to you, but I'm just saying that I could. Okay. I'm going to try to do is keep this mic close to him. Can you still hear me okay? All right. Let me get this over here. Well, first thing I want to show you, remember I told you how you can make a source for your DNA link? Well, if I go, okay, I'll go to this source here, and what I've done was I created a source. I went and did the repository and everything, just gave it a name as a link through his son Daniel, and gave a little bit of information, and then you have a web address. And this is the person that matches with it. So see, I don't have to go looking around. I can just click on it, and there I am.
Can you go through those steps again?
Yeah, let me go back. Well, if you're familiar with creating a source on Ancestry, I'm not going to go through this because it'll take a little while to do that. But if you're not familiar with that, you may want to become familiar with creating a source, your own source. And this is what I've done. I created my own source, but all the sources have a web address. So what I would do when I'm over at the person shared match that I have, I go up to the URL. And what I mean by URL is this information up here. And you can right click and copy it. And then what I do is put it here. So that's the link to the match.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying we should make a source
Yeah.
of us, and then on each of our matches on the tree, we connect that? Is that what you're saying, suggesting?
No, okay, if you notice, well, okay, for example, you have, okay, this is a source of the 1870 census. Okay, that's just a general source. 1870 census is just a source for that census. But now if I go into the source, it's actually linked to one document. So that's what I'm doing with the DNA. I'm creating a source. I'm creating a source here called Ancestry DNA links. But see, underneath the link, I'm putting the web address to the actual link. But the overall source is just called a DNA link, which would be all your DNA matches. But you just create a source back to the person who is the actual match. And so you can put all your information in here too. I know this, well, like for example, this person here comes through, well, he had a son named Joseph Larkin. He came through that person. So I would put that and then some of the other information like the Centimorgan values and all that into the match. So, all right. All right, let me show you one. You know what? I'm going to show you what I do on a daily basis. And I don't even know what I'm going to run up against. I may not even run up against anything here. I'm going to go into my mother. And here's what I do every day. Just a quick story. Okay, on your matches, you will see your stars, and then you see this little blue dot here. The little blue dot lets you know whether or not this match has been opened or not. And the star is just a way for you to mark that match. So what I do whenever I work a match, say I can't find anything on it, I want to leave it open. I'll make sure that blue mark is checked so it always shows up as new. And then, but once I work it, put some notes on it, I'll check the star to mark it, and I'll uncheck the blue box. Now, when you open the match, it automatically undoes the blue. You want to make sure you click it back. Or for some reason, I keep the blue mark so it always shows up new. And here's why. If I go, I'm going to go see if my mother's got any new matches. I haven't looked at her thing in about a week. May not be anything here, but maybe we'll get lucky. Well, yeah, actually she does. Actually, looks like I had a first cousin tested here that I didn't even know about. I got to give her a call. If I don't even need to look at that, I'll work with that later because I know her. I remember when she was born. So she's a little bit younger than me. All right, Alfred Wiggins. I have no idea who Alfred Wiggins is. Let's take a look. And this will be an example when I was showing with the shared matches. And here's another thing you want to do too to keep your where you're at. Like see this list of shared matches. I don't want to click on this person and go away from it. What I want to do, I want to right click on them. You know, use your tabs a lot and say an open a new tab. So see, I leave this open, and I see here I've got Alfred Wiggins. So I still got my list open. I can just go back to that tab and keep working it. If I want to leave him open for some reason, he's there. Now, all right, he's got a tree here, and I recognize these names. These are names that actually Glover is the name of my my great grandfather was Glover, and his wife was a Reynolds, and I know the Harpers down that line. But let's look at the shared matches and see what I get. And this here, if we're lucky, if he's really linked to these families, hopefully I'll have some notes here that'll show that he has shared matches back to some of the people that I know come from those families. Okay, we're not going to look at these. These are my aunts and uncles and cousin. Well, actually, okay, I did know that her daughter had done. I had made a note on that already. Okay, let me look at this person. So I can click on this little note here. Okay, I know that this person, it has a shared match on a tree. I know they're linked back to my second great grandfather, Lewis Reynolds, and this person is a confirmed cousin. So, see, that's an example why this person, I had made notes on this person probably 4 or 5 years ago. So, right there, Wiggins had the same. This guy Alfred Wiggins had the same names in his tree of Harper, Williams, and Glover. And now a note I made 4 or 5, 3 years ago, however long, and I know that he's has common shared matches back to that same family. So let's look at some of the other ones, see if I got the same. Yeah, so here's a person, goes back, I know they're from the Glovers from previous research. Okay, this person I know is a common, let me see, my second great grandfather, John Campbell Glover, and Amanda Harper, and there we go. From some previous research, I know we have a shared match going back to them. All right, so let me go here. You got to usually do that. Keep him open, because I'm not going to sit here and make notes tonight. I'll go do that later. Let's just take a look at one more person. I've got a third cousin. Let's see if I have anything showing up under him. All right, oh boy. There's the Helms and Newell and Williams, that Williams line. This is going to be fun. Okay. Oh, well, what they can do, okay, I'm looking down through the tree here, and I'm seeing in his tree, he's got my second great grandfather. And I can tell by the information there he copied it from someone else's tree, because I see these nicknames like that. Yeah, I can tell he copied it, but it looks like the DNA's matching up. Okay, what he's claiming is his, what? I think, let's see, that would be his great grandmother. That's actually my great grandfather William's sister right there in his tree. So I got lucky on that one. But hey, you know what? I can tell he copied this tree just by the way the names are laid out, because looks like I made the James Williams Find a Grave after I made it, and then after I found out, most of my pedigree is on Find a Grave. If you follow the links, you can rebuild my tree. And I made a mistake of putting his nickname. I knew his name Jim, and then people stuck that in a tree. And that's how I can tell that he copied that from somewhere. And it looks like you got my obituary graphic off Find a Grave too, which that's okay. I don't care. Let me go look at the shared matches and let's make sure, because you can have that paper trail. And well, of course he's going to match my mother, my aunts and uncles here. This matches my mother. Okay, there's my first cousin, new match I got. This is my mother's first cousin. I know who she is. This is my mother's first cousin once removed, my second cousin. I know that he comes from that Williams line there. So let me see. All right. Okay, here's another good clue. My great-grandfather's sister named Minnie Williams married a guy named Chester Crosby. And right, let me see. Yeah, and this person comes from that same family. So there, and I know this for a fact. I've communicated with this person for a while. So, okay. So it looks like, but is it making sense what I do with the shared matches? How at first you may not seem like a lot, but what it cascades and come over, a few years or something, or maybe 6 months or so, if you make a lot of notes, you will, it'll come back to help you later. Good.
These are people that have actually done the Ancestry DNA.
Yes. Yeah.
Only them.
All of them. Yeah, this is all.
My Uncle Bubba, he would never have done that. I mean, so what's the percentage of people who do not, that I'm looking for ancestors that have not gone on Ancestry DNA?
It's hard to tell. I mean.
About 100%.
Yes. Oh, you haven't done it yet, right? So.
Yes, I've done it.
You have?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, but there wasn't that many.
Well, now, let me ask you this. Do a lot of your family lines are recent immigrants? And what I mean by that is within the last 100 years or so?
Yes.
Okay, that's why. See, all my family lines, pretty much all of them are pre-Revolutionary War. And that's why I have so many matches. Now, you are seeing some, I think the UK matches are coming. Yeah, I know the UK is, because my daughter-in-law, one line of her family, her second great-grandfather came over from Wales and England. So she didn't have nowhere near the matches that I had. She had a lot because there are other lines from here, but they were a little less. And I know another girl that had done a lot of her lines were, especially on her mother's side, pretty much all of them came around World War I. They were Jewish people that were fleeing the, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, I believe it was called, and from the persecution over there. On her mother's side, most that's where they come from. And I think she probably didn't have maybe 300 or 400 matches at best. Yeah. So, but now if you notice with Ancestry, I mean, people are, especially when they drop, sometimes they'll drop the test to $49, $59, and people will buy it in droves around Christmas. So, I mean, their database has grown almost exponentially in the last couple of years. And you wait around because you'll wait around for a while and you'll have something come up that you, well, like here, I had a first cousin I didn't even know done it. I got to give her a call and say, but I didn't even know she done it, but it looks like it just come up within the last week because I haven't looked at my mother's matches in about a week. So does that make sense how I'm showing you how to do the shared matches?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really one of the best things you can do. And it pays off later. And just make notes. Make notes till you turn blue, you know. Just, you know, your hand turns blue if you have to. Because it comes in handy later. And, you know what, I could show you 1,000 other things, but I probably need to shut it down.
How many cousin generations do you go back? I seen second, third. You get to fourth and fifth, or how far back?
Oh, yeah, they go, yeah, fourth, and then you'll, after that, you get fifth and after. So, yeah, now there is one thing with the shared matches that if you notice, okay, see here this person at the bottom is 34 Centimorgans. A person that is less than 20 Centimorgans will not show up on your shared matches. So you may have people that are still matching with that family, but they won't show you less than 20 Centimorgans. And I discovered that by accident because under my mother and father, I knew I had a bunch. Well, with my mother, I should have tons. And I started, no, well, there's not that many matches here. So I went to the last page and I noticed that that was 20 Centimorgans was the cutoff. So let me show you one real quick trick and then I'm going to stop, okay? Because this one here really comes in handy. Okay, for example, okay, this guy, Michael Barnhart, you see this up here, it's called a URL. You see you have test. This big long number here is the test ID for my mother's DNA test. And if you look, we got match. This long number here after match, that is the test ID for Michael Barnhart, right? So I'm going to go see if Michael Barnhart matches me. I don't want to go looking through a big list. I just want to see if he matches me. I don't have all night. We got to shut this down, right? So I'm going to go back over here to my profile. And I'll go to my matches. And I'm just going to pick, you know, any match, it doesn't matter. And if I go up here under match ID and blank that out, and if I paste his match ID in there, I can hit enter. And if I match him, it should come up. And it looks like it's decided to take a dive on me. I'm holding Control key down and V to paste, doing a copy paste. It usually works. It's just Ancestry acting up. But did that make sense what I've done? I get that unique ID from the actual person I want to see, and I go over to my test and put it in under the match, and it's not working. Usually it works, but sometimes it don't. And I may not match them at all. That may be one reason. But usually it will work. But that is, I have a video on my website to show you steps you through doing that. So, all right, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down because I'll be here all night. But I hope y'all enjoyed it. And
Questions?
oh, let her run the microphone to you because what I'm doing, I'm recording this with the slides, and it'll be up on my website probably by this time tomorrow. You can go back and watch it if you like. You're not going to hear it come out here. It's just
would show you was 20 Centimorgans. Correct? Do I understand?
That is just what your shared matches. Now, your shared matches.
But that's what it volunteers to do. If you do a search, it will give you any match.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you go here, like I go here to the matches of my mother, like this, yeah, it'll go up to 3 or 4 Centimorgans. It's just when I go into that person a match, the shared matches from within a match is only going to go up to 20 Centimorgans.
I want to make sure
Yeah.
you understood that.
Yeah,
What you were showing me is the things that Ancestry volunteers to,
yeah,
right, without any prompting. You can go in yourself and say, no, I think there's more there. Let me go back and further generations, or a different name altogether, and it will go down, as you say, all the way to.
yeah. Well, see, this list here of just matches will go down really low. But like for instance, I click here on my mother's sister, and I go here to shared matches. Under that match, the list of these matches is only going to go up to 20 Centimorgans. But now your main list of match will go up till very low. I mean, if you, like 3, I believe. I mean, it's really low, which don't even pay those any attention. Anything 7 or below is probably suspect as being false. Are there any more questions? All right, that looks like that's it then. Y'all have a good night. I hope you enjoyed it.